So, question for you, Joker, and the audience. If you could be either a half-breed of any fantasy creature, what would it be? Basically, you get most of their powers, but none of the side effects. But you will never be as powerful as a pureblood.
You go with the dragon.
You know what? I'm not even surprised. I almost, as the question left my mouth, I'm like, he's gonna pick dragon, isn't he?
Heck yeah. If I can have the breath weapon and like all the durability of a dragon, sure, I may not be able to fly or quite have their strength, but still, it'd be amazing.
Maybe I think I'd go with a I forget their actual mythical name, but what Medusa is.
A Gorgon.
A Gorgon. I think that'd be kind of a fun one to be. That just, like, especially if I had like slight control over making the stone thing happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only power you get, though. Like, they don't really have anything else for them.
I mean, they have a little bit of regenerative powers.
Okay.
Either that or a werewolf.
Which is already kind of a half-breed to begin with.
True. Okay, folks, that leads us into this week's character. We're going to talk about Blade, a.k.a. Eric Cross Brooks. Those of you who haven't read the comics, that's right, he does have a full name. So, let's get into it. So, Blade was introduced as a supporting character in Marvel Comics' The Tomb of Dracula, issue number 10, July 1973. Written by Marv Wolfman and penciled by Gene Colan. Man, he's an older character.
I like how Wolfman is involved in a lot of the creatures of the night.
It's kind of ironic. You almost wonder if he's just like, as he's like writing something, he's just like, God dang it.
Another one to the list.
Yeah, he just knows they've been typecasting him to write for those.
Right. So the artist would recall in 2003, Marv told me Blade was a black man, and we talked about how he should dress and how he should look. Very heroic looking. And that was my input. The bandolier of blades, that was Marv's idea, but I dressed him up and put the leather jacket on him and so on.
Okay, so that's pretty cool concept. Because I feel as though the character probably, because that's the question, because he was definitely an earlier black hero.
Oh, yeah.
And that, so I feel as though already creating T'Challa, Black Panther, if they want to, more put him in just, like a European country like Europe or America, they, there's a discussion of are we going traditional roots, or are we just going to make him his own character?
Exactly.
And honestly, the leather jacket, I'm down. It looks cool.
Oh, yeah. It works great for his character.
Okay, so Cullen based the character's features on composites of black actors, including NFL football star turned actor Jim Brown, which I did look up a photo of him, and yeah, pretty you can see some of the features.
Makes sense.
No, that's actually kind of cool though. An NFL star, it's almost like the Sting thing.
Yeah. So Blade would appear in issues number 10 through 21, with additional appearances in issue 24 and 28, although altogether ranging from July of 73 to September of 74. Which isn't horrible for being just a supporting character at the time.
Right? I mean, because in total, that's we got 11, 12, 13 issues that he appeared in.
Which, yeah, for a supporting character isn't horrible.
Yeah, it really isn't.
It's actually really, really good.
Compared to some of the supporting characters we've done, very. Also bothers me that Wolfman, no offense, Wolfman, if you ever hear this, but considering there is a character named Wolfman by night,
right.
It keeps throwing me off seeing Wolfman's name here, so I'm going to go into it. So Wolfman, the real person, recalled in 2009, I knew if I let him, Blade would eclipse the other characters. So I pulled him back and let original supporting characters Rachel, Frank, and Quincy shine. I also wasn't happy with my Blade dialogue. So I pulled him out of the book for a while, I think almost a year. And when I brought him back, I played him a bit straighter. The early Blade dialogue was cliche Marvel Black dialogue. Later on, I tried to make him more real, but it took growing up as a writer. Which that makes sense, especially considering Wolfman is a white man trying to portray a black character. He's going to fall into...
And not just that, but also just for the time period. they only had so many, and they were all playing off stereotypes anyways.
Exactly. So honestly, I kind of give him props for like realizing what he was doing and just being like, I'm gonna pull this character out until I can actually portray them realistically.
Yep, until I can portray them the way I really want to.
Because like in the first part of this, you might almost get upset that he pulled him back and let the other character shine, but considering why, that completely makes sense. And
oh yeah, definitely.
Mad respect, Wolfman. Mad respect.
So outside the Tomb of Dracula, he would fight the scientifically created vampire Morbius, the living vampire, in the later series An Adventure into Fear, issue number 24, in October of 74. In a story written by Steve Gerber and penciled by P. Greg Russell.
Damn.
I didn't know he actually fought Morbius when I decided we should do Blade after for the concept of a vampire being followed by a vampire hunter.
Which, because me and Joker were talking before we started recording, Blade is one of the few characters whose comics I never really got into. Don't know why, because I loved like the movies and his appearances in cartoons. I only know he fought Morbius from the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, but had no idea if he actually did in the comics. It makes sense considering how comic accurate the show was.
Yeah.
Okay. So Blade's first solo story came in Marvel's black and white horror comics magazine, Vampire Tales, issue number 8, in December 1974. In an 11-page story by Wolfman and penciler-inker Tony DiZaniga, this feature continued in issue number 9, February 1975, with Wolfman and Chris Claremont co-scripting.
Blade would then appear in a 56-page solo story that concluded the story begun in Vampire Tales 8 through 9 in the black and white showcase magazine Marvel Preview 3, written by Claremont with the 2 chapters, each drawn by Tony D. and Regal Rival. The story was announced for Vampire Tales issue number 12, but was published here after the magazine was canceled, with a 6-page backup story by Wolfman and Colin followed in Marvel Preview number 8 in fall of 1976.
Okay. I gotta tell you, just so far right now, I do appreciate that Wolfman has had a hand in most of his work. And that's always nice when original people who worked on it still keep some kind of input. Okay, so Blade next came into prominence in the 1990s, beginning with Ghost Rider issue number 28, August 1992, in the Midnight Suns imprint that included issues of Darkhold, pages from the Book of Sins. Ghost Rider, Blaze, Johnny Blaze, Spirits of Vengeance, Midnight Suns Unlimited, Morbius, and Night Stalkers. Blade co-starred in the 18-issue series Night Stalkers and appeared with the team in a story in the anthology issue Midnight Suns Ultimate, issue number 1, April 1993. He appeared in 2 solo stories in Midnight Suns Unlimited, issue number 2 and 7, July 1993 and October 1994. So, honestly,
he's been all over the place.
He really has, but it almost reminds me of, I forget which character it was. I think it might have been Moon Knight. Impressed with the consistency.
Yep.
Even though he hasn't had as many solo runs at this point, the fact that he's just kind of been a prominent in their character.
Exactly.
And I think
he was very prominent through the 70s, extremely prominent through the early 90s.
Yeah. It's impressive that he just has maintained a prominence.
Right.
Even if he hasn't had as many solo runs.
Be nice if he'd kind of come back.
I would like to see him come back, and honestly, I think that might be my next comic book purchase, is getting some of his older works.
You say that during almost every episode.
And honestly, if my wallet would allow it, it would be the truth.
It'd be the truth because you'd have him before the episode.
Yeah, you're dang right. I'd be reading them to do the research. That'd be my research.
So, following the cancellations of Night Stalkers, Blade debuted in his first color comic series, Blade the Vampire Hunter, issues number 1 through 10, in July of 94 through April 95. Written by Ian Edginton, with the last 2 issues by Terry Kavinga, and penciled by Doug Wheatley.
Okay, a little sad to see Wolfman disappear on that, but you know what?
It makes sense that much later in the time period that it makes sense that there'd be new people taking... starting it. And I'm sure they probably he probably had some input into it.
But he wasn't really working on it. More of like
Exactly.
somebody probably went to him and was like, hey, how did you get into the headspace to write it?
Kind of like how they did with the new Star Wars films and Lucas, where he was kind of the voice on the side, but he wasn't in charge.
Fair. So, yeah, folks, that's kind of it for Blade's real-world origins into the late 90s. If you want more, maybe later on we'll do an expansion episode. But for now, we're just doing origins. So let's get into in-universe. So in-universe, Eric Brooks was born in Soho, London, on the 24th October 1922. His father, Lucas Cross, a member of the secret society, the Order of the Tirana, sent his pregnant wife, Tara, to England before he was taken prisoner in Latveria. I find this very unique because based on the movies, you would have never guessed he was born in England.
That's because we'll go into a little bit later because it was a fun fact. Something I found out was kind of interesting.
Redcon.
No.
Oh.
No, like I said, we'll go into that a little bit later. As to
Okay.
Kind of what it can help us explain all that.
Cool. But yeah, no, kind of cool. Parents actually were already pretty prominent in
At least the dad was.
Yeah.
So in England, his mom would take the name Vanessa Brooks and found shelter with the brothel owner, Madame Vanity, another member of the Order of Tirana.
Okay, so dad at least has some connections to try to keep him safe.
Yeah, but I feel like it's the only reason she ended up in a brothel.
Yeah.
I hope.
I'm hoping to. I'm also do find just like going back to what the part I read, I find it funny that the Laverian thing was brought in just because at this point in the timeline, it would have still been ruled by that corrupt leader before Doom took over. So that's kind of just
which is probably why they kind of used it at that time point, because they were able to use it without having Doom.
Yeah, which brilliant writing, I think. And that also, kind of just ties into where somebody asked him about Blade would probably be like, F the last guy, I'm about Doom.
Yep.
When Tara experienced severe labor complications, a doctor was called. In actuality, the doctor was the vampire Deacon Frost, who killed Tara by drinking all of her blood. However, this inadvertently passed along certain vampire enzymes to her baby son as he was born. And yeah, I guess that's how you get a hybrid vampire.
Yep, because we'll talk about that here in this next section, where the enzymes that entered the infant's bloodstream would transform him into a being tainted by a vampire's kiss, but not converted. In other words, half human, half vampire, also called a Dathomir.
I thought the Dathomir part was kind of cool to find out.
Oh, yeah.
That they actually have a legitimate name for it.
Yep.
And also...
I know the Dathomir, that's a term that's used for other, half-breed kind of things in other universes.
I think I've heard it used in Skyrim. Okay, so the brothel sex workers drove off Frost once they realized what he had done. And from what I could tell of it in that, the brothel worker, this whole society, everybody involved, even the brothel workers would have some skill sets to be able to fight off vampires, apparently.
Well, it makes sense because if one person's a part of a certain organization, there's probably a little more going on in this brothel than just the normal brothel.
Exactly, and which honestly, in a lot of things I've either read or watched, brothels are always the perfect kind of front/cover thing for secret organizations wanting to work and obtain knowledge in towns.
Yep,
which makes sense why she would own one.
So, due to his father Lucas Cross being falsely imprisoned in his native Latveria, Eric would be raised in the brothel, believing his mother to have been an employee there. And at age 9, returning home from school one day, he saw an old man being attacked by 3 vampires. Eric would help the man, Jamal Afari, distract his attacker so he could kill them with a silver sword.
Which I thought was pretty cool how he found this new vampire hunter. Also, I had to do so much cross-sourcing to make that paragraph. Because
I believe it.
No page had an exact thing about his childhood. They all had things that were different, but they all slightly correlated. So I'm like, we're just gonna mix all of this.
Which makes sense because a lot of the stories aren't gonna care much about a lot of his childhood because it's not gonna be that hugely important all the time to certain characters.
Exactly. So, So over time, his skill with bladed weapons would earn him the name Blade among his enemies and allies alike. Which makes sense. There was also one version where they said that he called himself that.
I could see that too.
I could see it too in that. I just like to believe he wouldn't be that pompous.
So Blade would also receive additional training from the legendary stick.
Which I got real excited.
I was not expecting that among all people.
I wasn't either. I got real excited. Also, just for everybody wondering, I would like to go back now that we brought up stick. Jamal Afari was actually the character in the movies. He is Wheeler.
Okay.
They had altered him from that character. He was a stand-in for that character.
Okay.
Who in the comics was a black character who pretended to be a jazz musician so he could travel and hunt vampires.
Makes sense.
Okay, so now let's get into Blade's little bit young arrogance. Blade's easy victories made him cocky. He joined a gang of young hunters, the Blood Shadows, headed by Cyrus Cutter, later killed by Blade in a knife fight caused by Blade's disapproval of Cutter's actions as leader. Couldn't find anything that really went into detail on the disagreements. I can only imagine it had to be pretty bad for him to be like, this is going to end with...
It was probably similar to the whole moral standpoints with like...
Moon Knight and his partner.
His mercenary guy that he was...
Bushmaster, whatever.
I don't remember, but the one he was working for.
Yeah.
Not his actual partner.
Yep, I remember.
I feel like it's probably something similar.
I could see that.
Where it's the methods he used he didn't really care for.
I could see that.
So Gloriana, Cutter's girlfriend, would become Blade's first lover. So having gone to London, where for months the group hunted vampires, demons, and warlocks under Blade's leadership. The group would encounter a much older and more powerful vampire than Blade had met before, named Lamia. Blade would barely defeat Lamia, who had slaughtered the other Blood Shadows in bit glory, turning her into a vampire.
Okay. My dyslexia wasn't even reading that as the name. I'm like, it says gory.
Man, you would have been even more as bad.
Yeah, so. Okay. Well, that's kind of a sad ending for his first team.
Yeah, but also dealing with supernatural things, kind of expected.
Yeah. So generally not expected that soon, though. You're like, you think we get a few more years under our belts before a leader just came and wiped us out. Okay, so although Glory subsequently refused to kill Blade, she warned him never to look for her or she would kill him. The tragedy of the experience changed Blade considerably, as he became much more focused and determined in his hunting.
Which makes sense, because clearly he was slightly unfocused, probably because his first lover's right next to him.
Yep. And it probably explains why he's probably more of a loner type character.
Oh, definitely. So Afari himself would later fall prey to Dracula, the first occurrence in an ongoing feud between the Vampire Lord and Blade. Blade would mercy killed his mentor after Afari rose as a vampire and tracked Dracula back to Europe, Asia, and Asia Minor, staking him many times but never completely destroying him.
And as we discussed in the Dracula episode, which you can go back and check out on our pages, Dracula is hard to fully put down.
I'm actually kind of surprised that the whole thing with him and Blade never really came up.
Yeah.
Out of all of that.
I'm a little shocked that too in that. But at the same time, Dracula had a large enough hit.
Well, I wonder if this was far enough into his later story that we just never got to it.
Us doing Origins, I could see that. Because I think we barely got to where phones became a thing with Dracula.
I think so.
And Blade was born after phones were a thing, people. So, while in China, Blade joined Ugan Strong's vampire hunters, which included Azu, Ori, and Musenda. If I butchered any of those, I apologize. Together, they staked Dracula again. Dracula survived. Ooh, who saw that coming? And killed all of the hunters except Blade and Musenda, who eventually retired from vampire hunting. I do love the idea of them staking Dracula, and then he almost immediately comes back and is like, I'm going to light y'all up pretty hard now.
Right. That'd be even better. Because I'm sure it probably wasn't immediate, but that would just make it so much funnier.
Right? Just like, did you just stab me?
Oh, look. I've been impaled.
Oh, that's a mistake. He don't know it yet. Okay, so...
Or I created a lasting impression on Blade with his use of wooden daggers to combat vampires, leading to Blade adopting that weapon as his preferred arms. Consumed by grief for his fallen comrades, Blade resumed his quest alone. So, between his first group and the second group, that's entirely why he's a loner.
Oh, I completely understand, and yeah, so folks, that's it for Blade's origins. If you want more on it, maybe later on in this series we'll start doing modern day tales, but for now, we got that origin down. So, let's move on to powers and abilities. So, Daphne physiology. Blade was born a human/vampire hybrid. The enzymes in Blade's blood made him immune to normal vampire bites, uniquely attuned to sensing the supernatural and resistant to aging. Since being bitten by Morbius, Blade has gained many of the traditional powers of vampires without developing their weaknesses. He has superhuman strength, senses, and stamina, plus an accelerated healing factor. That kind of does go into the whole, for those of you who have been following along, Morbius being able to create thralls.
Yep.
And that, but biological ones. So that would almost complete Blade's power set without him becoming an actual thrall to him.
Which I think is exactly what just happened.
Yeah, which kind of cool.
Right.
Like, ooh, power up. So he has superhuman acute senses, superhuman speed, superhuman agility, superhuman durability. So Blade's vampire human hybrid tissue allows him to sustain physical trauma to a certain extent. This also contributes to his healing factor, making him more resistant than a normal human. He has regenerative healing factor. Blade, like true vampires, possesses an accelerated healing ability that allows him to heal mild to moderate injuries, with much greater speed, efficiency than an ordinary human. He has contaminant transferal. Now this is a little kind of just cool, interesting thing. He can take any kind of ingestible or even metaphysical ailment coursing in the system of another living being, or willingly introduce into his system and pass it along in the same way. Vampire transfer their mitochondria pathogen that turns others into thralls. That's kind of a cool,
That's kind of cool that he basically can take out somebody's ailment or just put in something.
All I know is he would hate me.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime I had the flu, I'd be bugging him. I'd just be like, come on, you're going to heal in a day from now. I'm stuck like this for 2 weeks. Just bite me. I don't care how bad it's going to hurt. It's better than this. I can't keep anything down. Okay, so he also has a prolonged life. Although not a pure vampire, he does have the advantage of being a hybrid. This includes a pseudo-immortality, greatly enhanced lifespan. So I would assume it'd be similar to Morbius's, if I had to guess.
Probably not as long as Morbius's, but yeah, probably the same idea where it's not true immortality, but it's kind of like
the next best thing.
Yeah.
So he also has transformation, which is something I had no idea.
It had to be a comic thing only.
Yeah, because Blade seemingly possesses the ability to change to and from human form to a more monstrous state of being by force of will, which also gives him the ability to manifest wings. Immunity. He also has immunity to vampire vulnerabilities. Basically, anything that could kill a vampire or vampire's technically weak against, he is not. I'm sure if you blew off his head, that's a different story, but I think you could take out most vampires by just straight up blowing off their heads.
That's step 1 through 7.
Guys, their weakness is they can't live without their heads. Okay, so that's it for powers and abilities.
So, before we get into the other media, what I was saying we bring up later about the kind of changes from the comic to the movies is a fun fact that Marv Wolfman actually tried to sue the people who made the Blade movies because he didn't. It was the what was the word? He didn't do it as like a thing to hire. So technically, it was his works.
Oh,
but the people who made the movie won because it was made just different enough that it wasn't technically the same character.
And not gonna lie, after going through this history and everything,
it makes so much sense.
Yeah, totally explains how they got away with that.
Yep.
Because his very different characters.
Exactly. And it was, yes, there's a lot of similarities, but it was just different enough where the court said, nope, this doesn't count.
Dang it, that is sad. Man, Wolfman, you'll have your day. Every wolf has its day, and you'll have yours.
All right. Into other media. So he mainly has television appearances. So he appears in Spider-Man, the Blade self-titled TV series, Marvel Anime Blade, Ultimate Spider-Man 2-part episode, Blade and the Howling Commandos, Hulk and the Agents of Smash, and in Marvel Disc Wars, The Avengers.
You know, as dumb as the Disc War anime looks, it also kind of looks fun and fun and awesome. Because Deadpool even has an appearance in there.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see it.
We've had quite a few that have an appearance in the Marvel anime, and it's making me more curious every time we find one.
Yeah.
So, in film, he is in Blade, Blade 2, and Blade Trinity, portrayed by Wesley Snipes. Which, as I was watching the first and the second, I like the second better so far because he's not as stiff. Like, in the first movie, he's just so stiff and upright and just walks awkwardly and moves like his whole body when he turns.
Yeah, it's almost like he practiced wearing the Christopher Keaton Batman suit.
Right. So I haven't gotten to Trinity yet, but I like his portrayal already so much better. He looks more human-like in 2.
I will say I like all three for different reasons of each one, but I can fully agree with your statement of that first one.
You can tell it was in the late 90s movie.
Mofo's always trying to ice skate uphill.
So, and in July of 2019, Marvel would announce that Mahershala Ali had been cast as Blade in an upcoming film and had been an uncredited episode in post-credit scene in The Eternals. What? I didn't know there was a post-credit scene, so I still need to go back and watch that because I forgot it was in here.
I still need to finish The Eternals, but...
But I do like that I really like their casting choice for the new Blade. I think he's going to do great.
Because wasn't it the same guy who was the villain in the first season of Luke Cage?
Yes.
Which, honestly, that's my only irritation with it. But considering the Netflix aren't technically canon anymore, now I'm like, oh, he's going to... Because honestly, when I first heard about it, I'm like, why didn't we cast him as Blade to begin with? Like, that guy's... Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be perfect.
I'm excited.
So he also has a fairly large video game list where he appears in Blade, Blade 2, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man Friend or Foe, the PS3, PSP, and Wii versions of the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Fate of Two Worlds, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order, and Lego Marvel Superheroes 2.
Always with the Legos.
He's in a lot of just those... It seems, except for a few of them, mostly like the fighter kind of games.
Which makes sense. He's actually a pretty cool character to get in the Ultimate Alliance when you find him. He's kind of in the first game, I think at first or second, but he's kind of you have to find him in the game to get him.
That's cool.
And I actually found him on complete accident and was real happy.
Back in the day when you had to actually earn your characters and not just buy them.
looking at you, EA.
Or any
fighting
company nowadays.
Fair.
Because Mortal Kombat's not any better anymore.
True. Okay, and I guess we should end this with a question we always ask. You a fan, Joker?
Oh, definitely. I never really knew a lot about him. I saw a few of the cartoon episodes, but I've always liked the concept of Blade. He always seemed like an awesome character.
And same here. I knew him from the cartoons and the movies mostly, and didn't really know him from the comics. But after this, yeah, I'm still a fan. For anyone that's still listening, if you got something out of this, enjoyed the episode, or even liked the character before from a movie, comic, cartoon, hell, even that t-shirt that you saw one time, you're a fan too. If you want to jump on this train, why not subscribe and share with a friend? D-rael out. Y'all keep riding them rails.